PSI TV helps the small business have a big presence by making TV affordable. Beyond ads, small budget brands can now have a channel presence with their content. We are the Netflix of biz brands. If you have a passionate message, solution to a problem, a new book or product launch, and you want to impact a new and expansive audience, PSI TV will have your audience saying, I saw you on TV. Today, I have a special guest with me. Julie Kramer is a spiritual director, transformational coach, and author. Her passion is teaching people how to transform losses into wisdom to reclaim purpose, motivation, and direction. She connects the dots between the soul's calling and the process of regeneration, renewal, and healing. Ms. Kramer's 30 years of work as a career coach, spiritual director, and chaplain, providing services to more than 10,000 people dealing with life crisis issues, has led her to develop this program. Her coaching focus her coaching focuses on helping you become the hero of your life as you integrate lost parts and transform your life. Julie, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Trudy. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being with me today. Now, Julie, you say grief does not have to last forever. Why shouldn't grief last forever?
Well, the reason I bring this up is that I was working as a hospice chaplain and as a grief counselor for hospice, and for 9 years. And when I ran grief groups, a lot of people would say, oh, I just have to live with this grief. There's no way I can actually get rid of it. It's going to be a lifelong grief. And I was baffled because I didn't really agree with them. And so, I mean, the fact is, I myself have gone through many years of depression, and eventually I came out of it. And when I became a chaplain, I began to try some of the things that I did for myself with the people that I was serving. And I tried many, many different methods, but the main foundation of my method is prayer. And I saw that when I used prayer and invited people to weep and grieve, and you combine the emotional passion with the prayer, that it was very effective. And I developed a multidimensional approach, and I began to realize that I began to argue with people and say, no, you don't have to keep this grief forever. If you will grieve using both your mind and your heart, you can get rid of it. It'll go away.
So I can see where they're coming from. I mean, what would you say to those who see moving on as equivalent to packing up an important part of their life and just putting it in a storage box somewhere?
Well, I think that's the old way of doing it. I think that's the mental, the mind has that formula for dealing with grief. But I'm proposing a new way, which is that we use the mind and the heart together and not pack it up. But so there's this idea that when the heart has a lot of grief, it's like a big bucket of grief. And when you weep, you're getting rid of a certain amount of the grief in the bucket. So it's like raining. So the more you grieve, if you do it properly, the more you empty the bucket of sorrow. And what I say is, if you can grieve and go through the process properly, then you can completely empty that bucket and you don't have to pack it up and store it.
Like have a good cry.
Find the wisdom, then the grief can be released. They both have to happen together. And so I'm recommending that we retrain our minds, refocus our minds, and develop a manners of behaviors for the mind so that the mind can be used properly. And what I mean, so I take a multidisciplinary approach.
Now, you have a book you've written, Grief to Gratitude, The Art of Grieving. Most of us have lost. Oh, thank you. Show that really, show that up for the audience, please. All right. So most of us, Julie, have lost a loved one. How does your book help us process that grief and move on? Not everybody will have the opportunity to actually work directly with you. So if we get your book, how does that help?
Well, it's a how-to book. It's 9 chapters, and every chapter is a step in the process. And the process that I take you through is sharing your story with other people, confessing and weeping, praying. And by the way, every chapter has original prayers in it to specifically ask God to take the grief away and to release us from the burden of the grief. And I think by giving the grief to God and looking for the learning or the thanksgiving or the wisdom and doing it in a community with a group of people, all those aspects of it make it successful. But you have to do all of them, or at least you have to combine the wisdom seeking with the grieving. A lot of people skip the grief. They don't cry. They really don't. They get too far on the mental side of it and they analyze everything, but they don't really cry. But I think if you combine the prayer with the crying, with the seeking of wisdom, you've got a winning combination and you'll get there.
Is that what you mean by a multidisciplinary approach?
Yes, that's what I mean. And I recommend you light candles. So it's a combination of the spirit, the heart, and the mind. And it's a combination of prayer and God and faith and grief. And so it's not an intellectual, analytical process. The problem with most grief groups is that they just analyze everything and they never do any crying.
So you yourself have been through grief, depression personally, and you have that experience with what you teach. You talk about strategies and tools to make this transformation possible. Tell us about the type of transformation a client could look forward to if they work directly with you.
Well, the kind of transformation they could look forward to would be a release of the old resentments, judgments, complaints, angers, and fears, to clear the decks in their heart and spirit for the new, which would be their purpose and their mission. And there are case studies in my book. I recommend the case study on page 29. It's quite dramatic.
We will save that one to give them a reason to go check that book out. So, is there anything else you'd like to share, Julie?
Well, I think that the roadmap for the mind is different than the roadmap for the heart. That's what I'm learning. And they both lead in different directions. The mind, the path of the mind leads to judgment and anger. The path of the heart leads to grief, forgiveness, and gratitude. And as a culture, I think we need to discipline our minds and let our hearts lead the way. And this is basically a spiritual path, and it's Christian. It's a Christian path. There are a lot of benefits to sharing your story. It brings emotional depth, it lowers stress, it relieves your sorrow, It leads to closure. It helps you tap into the wisdom. You become more objective. It brings clarity on your purpose. And it documents your journey so that next time the journey is shorter. And also, you end up clarifying what you value. And that's very important. I think we need to discipline our minds and let our hearts lead.
Lead with the heart. I agree with you on that one.
Mhm.
Well, Judy, this was very interesting. We've all lost someone at some point in our life, and this is definitely some handles that we can all grab onto, and instead of just sitting there in that grief and just time going by, and we lose time and nothing gets done, and we just sit there feeling sorry for ourselves, that we can actually pull some wisdom out of this, and find our passion and our mission in the process. It sounds like a good deal to me. So, Julie, how can the audience connect with you? Clearly, your book is one way, and I'll definitely, guys, I will put a link that you can look at and get to Julie's contact. But Julie, share with us how they can reach you.
Well, they can contact me by email at julie@kramercoaching.com. They can also get a free summary of the book. It's a nice 10-page summary, and it's free if they go to www.goodlifepath.com/ebook. And they can make an appointment with me. I think I gave you that URL. And they can go to kramercoaching.com to find out about upcoming programs. I'm getting ready to do a program on forgiveness. That's my next program.
Awesome. And Kramer is Kramer, Kramer Coaching.
Yes, kramercoaching.com.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Julie, my awesome guest today, spiritual director, transformational coach, and author at kramercoaching.com. Thank you so much for being with us on PSI TV. And guys, check out the show and get in touch with Julie, get her book.